Hello everybody, my name is King and welcome back to another one of these videos where we tell scary Reddit stories and hope we never experience them ourselves. I mean, honestly. This is just a reminder that you can send me your own stories, personal experiences, and whatever you'd like to show me that I can share with you guys on the channel. You guys can message me on Instagram, as it's probably the only place I will probably look. I'm really bad at social media, so. But without further ado, enjoy the video. This is a warning. I'm the living reason why you should never do what I'm about to tell you. There are things in this world that exist, some that we do not understand or believe. This is what happened to me and my two friends 4 years ago, and why I am now paying the price. Me and my two friends, Nathan and Charlie, loved our horror films, conventions and events. We had also done lots of Ouija boards, pentagram rituals, chanting and the rest. Now I know this may sound dangerous to some, but we really didn't believe in all that, and what these things apparently bring upon their victims. We would always say that it was a ploy to invest people in the horror genre and make horror films, games and experiences more scary. In fact, we were actively looking at new ways to summon demons, spirits and witches with chants, practices and actions. How naive we were is beyond me, but look, we were young and dumb, and I'm sure many are accustomed to the film Candyman. Say his name 5 times in the mirror, and he comes and kills his victims. Nathan and Charlie liked to browse the dark web. They even got mystery boxes delivered. One of the boxes even contained a bloodstained knife. Nathan had a sizable YouTube channel until it was taken down. I didn't really get involved in any of that though. One Friday night, they both came round with something new to try, and they said it was like the film Candyman. They explained that they found a phrase online that is said to summon the devil's daughter, named Lucia. I was intrigued and prompted them to tell me more. Nathan passed me a printed piece of paper with 4 written lines on it. He told me that we have to say the lines into parallel mirrors, then she would appear behind you slowly. Lucia makes her way through the reflections until finally she takes you. He was laughing by the end of that sentence at how stupid it sounded. I questioned him on what he meant by the parallel mirrors. He said it's like when you have 2 mirrors facing each other. It's as if there's almost an infinite amount of reflections. I immediately went back to him, saying that I have that in my bathroom. He leaned in and stared at me, then snapped back saying, "That's why we're here." We stood in front of the mirror. I had a smaller mirrored medicine cabinet adjusted to the main one above the sink. One at a time, we said the satanic phrase, Charlie first, then Nathan. The tension grew after each one of us had finished. I went last. I finished the last word and the light went off. I shouted, "What the hell?" It turned out just to be Nathan messing around. We looked into the mirror again, but nothing happened. Charlie was the first to say it was all bullshit, like the rest of the stuff we had tried many times before. We all went downstairs to watch some zombie budget film. Later that night the guys had left, and I went to clean my teeth. As I was halfway through brushing, my stomach dropped. I looked up to the train of mirrors in front of me. Just before my view was blocked by my own reflection, a girl stood in the distance. I couldn't make out any features as she was so small. Every time I moved myself for a better view, I would still be in the way. I stared intently at her. She wasn't disappearing. I know we had a few beers earlier, and I put it down to alcohol. I went to bed convincing myself it was all in my head. I woke the next morning. As I went into my bathroom, my mind went back to what I had seen last night. I looked in the mirror. She was there again. This time she was not in the furthest reflection. She had moved forward to the next one up. I could see more features, a white dress with red patches, black straight hair. She was looking down to the ground as her arms dangled lifelessly beside her. I splashed water in my eyes and dried them with a towel. When I looked again, she had moved once more to the next reflection. I rushed to my phone and called Charlie and Nathan. They both hadn't seen anything and told me to stop being stupid. They were both working that day, as they worked weekends, as I couldn't get them around to show them. I went online and spent the next 4 hours looking into what we had done and what I saw, but found nothing. Halfway through the afternoon, I received a call from Charlie. He was breathing heavily and was just saying, "What the hell?" repeatedly. I said back to him, "You've seen her." His voice broke as he uttered the words, "She's so close." I was confused as I could hardly see her the first time. I went back to him asking how many times he looked. He said 6. She's 1 away. like right next to me. I told him to get out of where he was and leave. I will never forget the loss of hope in his next sentence. I'm in a cubicle. The toilets have mirrored walls. I told him to cover his eyes and run. I would meet him outside his work soon. It turned out 25 to 30 minutes later. The place was evacuated with police outside. I asked some of the staff if they had seen Charlie and what had happened. They told me they heard a crash from the toilets. When they went in, the floor was covered in mirrored glass. Within the glass, they saw blood and what looked like whole human fingernails and teeth. This was when they called the police. I called Charlie's phone. I could hear ringing come from a few officers outside the store. I went striding up to them, calling Charlie's name as I walked. All 3 officers turned round and put their arms out to stop me. I noticed the ring was coming from a clear sealed bag one of them was holding. They questioned me after I explained how I knew Charlie. I said nothing on what we had done or saw, as they would have laughed it off. Once I got home, I called Nathan. He already knew. He was also questioned by the police. He said that nothing had happened to him and that I was making up the whole thing. He said not to joke around if something bad had happened to Charlie. A few words were exchanged, and Nathan moved away not long after that. After all of this, I took the cabinet down. This was done at the cost of seeing her again. I spent the next year trying my best to not getting myself into a situation where there were parallel reflections. A year and a half later, I found myself in a double mirror-walled public toilet. The terror I felt as I went in and noticed was incomprehensible. There she was, only 4 reflections away. This time she was looking up at me. I could see her clearly. The black straight hair fell onto her white blood-smeared dress. Her eyes rolled upwards, with only the red veins visible on the whites of her eyes. Her blackened fingertips capped with talons gripped the bottom of her dress. She was smiling at me, wearing deep red lipstick exposing yellowed sharpened teeth. Her pale, cracked, decaying face glued to me as I walked in. There was a large bang behind me. I shot my head back as someone ran in. They apologized as I went into one of the cubicles. I looked back at the mirror. She had reached the 3rd reflection from behind me. I started to panic. I could feel my knees shaking uncontrollably as her arm lifted. She was calling me closer with her hand. I shouted to leave me alone and ran out of the toilet. This is the last public toilet I have been into. 6 months after this happened, I received a call from Nathan's parents. He had gone missing. The police had told them that everything in his apartment was left untouched except for the bathroom. This had been trashed, was full of blood and broken glass. They had run DNA tests and dental records to confirm it was Nathan. He had gone the same way as Charlie. She had got them both. I have now been living on my own in the countryside for 2 years. I only leave the house once or twice a month for a walk. I get all of my groceries and essentials delivered as I can't risk supermarkets or stores. I own no mirrors, only a laptop which I have put a non-reflect screen cover on. I have only seen her twice these last 2 years. The last time she was reaching out to grab me. I know if I ever see her again, it'll be the last thing I ever see. You've all been warned. Please don't make the same mistakes we did. It would cost you your life either way. Little backstory on my mama. She was in the 6th grade when she left school to go to work cleaning, basically a maid, for a rich family that lived in Williamson, WV. She was raised hard, but was the best woman I've ever known. She instilled in me honesty, work ethic, and many other wonderful things. She left me in 2016 and I miss her. Here's a little piece of her. This story was told in our family when I was growing up. It used to scare me so bad. Anyway, my mama swore it was the truth, and she was not known to tell lies. I should know because it was just me and her when I was growing up. Anyway, she was born and raised in a very rural and poor area of WV. Her and her 7 or 8 brothers and sisters were very poor. Because of this, and because it was what many country people did, her father raised a garden. Now, Mama nearly idolized her father, and would go with him the distance from their house to the garden spot, which was a good piece off. This required that they push a wagon with wooden wheels past their neighbor's house. My mama was terrified of the old woman that lived beside them. Mama said they called her Aunt Kate. She was older and apparently had cataracts because Mama said her eyes were white. Mama said this particular summer was extremely hot, and that she and her father had spent a good bit of time at the garden tending to the vegetables and picking what was ready. As they pushed this big wagon up and in front of Aunt Kate's house, the old woman came out and yelled, "Harrison, give me some of those beans you got there." My great-grandfather responded, "Kate, we worked hard for them beans and we ain't giving them away." The old woman laughed and said they would regret the decision. The two proceeded up the hill to their home and went about their chores and other required duties. Mama said that she thought nothing more of it until it was time to sleep. According to my mama, with so many kids, some shared the bed and some on the floor where they slept with minimal coverings. Mama said that she was drifting off to sleep when she heard someone or something walk towards the room where she was sleeping. Knowing the sound of the home, she did not recognize who or what it could be. Mama always talked about how her father would tell them stories to scare them into being good. Due to this, she was easily scared. As the walking got closer, she reported covering her head and laying still, terrified of who or what was standing in the doorway. Mama reported that whatever it was would turn and walk out of the room and back down the hallway, all night long. Mama said she lay there all night terrified and scared to take her head out from under the blanket. The next morning, as the sun rose, the thing stopped. She stated that she then heard the familiar sound of her father moving quickly to dress. Once she bolstered enough bravery, she immediately darted down the hallway and into the kitchen, where her father was placing green beans into a sack. The two did not speak, but walked quickly out the door and down the hill to Aunt Kate's house with a sack full of beans. Mama said old Aunt Kate was already sitting out on her porch, as if waiting for them to arrive. Her father said, "Old woman, take your boger," Appalachian term for spirit/demon. And Aunt Kate started laughing and telling them, "Don't worry, Harrison, it won't bother you no more." Mama told other things that Aunt Kate did that allude to her being someone familiar with the dark side. Mama was very honest, Christian lady, and I never remember a time where I caught her in a lie or even heard her curse and she swore. So the app I use, a lot of people are skeptical about. It's called Ghost Hunting Tools, but I'm not so skeptical because of the series of words I got within a 20-minute span. I was with my friends camping, A and T and J. A is a medium as well as me. At this time I wasn't exactly into my spiritual side. Aside from that, A and T were doing a double Estes method, making sure A and T couldn't hear. J yelled loudly, and neither A or T had a reaction. We then asked them if anyone was there. We got yes from A and sure from T. At this time I have this app open, and the first 6 minutes of the session I don't get a single word. But the first word that pops up is Sandra, my great aunt's legal name. She goes by Sandy. A then said, "Watching you." I wanted to start crying then, but the next 3 words I got were in a row. Face, blanket, and people. Shut up within a minute. Her strokes caused her left side of her face to become numb and sag. She had her blankets from her room in a hospital room, and her siblings and nephews/nieces were there to see her pass away. I'm freaking out at this point because no one knows her real name, or about the blanket. A and T ended their spirit box with the headphones, but kept it going out loud, which I don't remember what words we got then. The next words I got were wish and children. She couldn't have kids on her own, and she raised other people's kids. She always wanted her own kids. 4 months after no activity, we almost packed up, when the next word I got was stroke. I'm crying at this point because I know it's her. As we were saying goodbye, I got the word purple, followed by love. Her favorite color was purple. I never got a message from her, but I'm glad I have this app since I can't really hear spirits. So yesterday my mom told me a story about something that had happened to her at work. My mom has always been a huge skeptic, as I have been myself, but this has probably freaked us both out, as we can't explain it. I'm curious to see what others think. My mom works at a pharmacy as a dispenser. She has a colleague that she talks to every day who is also a skeptic, but has an interest in the paranormal. She told my mom a story about how she went to visit a graveyard to visit a loved one with one of her friends. They were the only ones in the graveyard, but they heard a female humming. They assumed it was someone crouching behind a grave tending to it and had a look around. They eventually came to a grave where the sound appeared to be coming from, but nobody was there. They checked their phones and any other devices and nothing. A little freaked out, they went to the pub nearby and had some food. As they were chatting, they both went silent at the same time and froze as they could hear the humming again. They carried on eating and eventually parted to go home. Later that night, my mum's colleague got a call from her friend, who was hysterical. She cried on the phone that she heard the humming in her house. Mum's colleague calmed her down and reassured her that it was nothing, and she was probably just hearing things. After putting the phone down, she went upstairs to bed as it was late. She heard the humming in her bedroom. My mum, upon being told this, wasn't that amazed, as she just brushed it off as a story, being the skeptic she is. She left the room and walked down the long hallway leading to the top of the stairs. She says she heard a female humming right behind her, different notes, but only lasting 2 to 3 seconds. She turned around to laugh at her colleague, thinking she was taking the mick. Nobody was there. Her colleague was still in the room on the other end of the hallway, too far away to be heard, and nobody else was on the floor with them. There's no PA system or any kinds of speakers, and she didn't have her phone or anything on her. I've never heard my mum so freaked out before, as she's a very straight-laced person and always tries to debunk everything paranormal. I can't think of anything either. About 8 years ago now, my dad did woodwork and refurbished an old 1800s wardrobe, and he decided it would look good in their bedroom, which it did. About 2 nights after it being in my mother's room, she started to complain that it was eerie and that she had a bad feeling about it. I remember her saying that about a week later it started opening itself in the night and that she could see a person in it and that he talked to her. Of course my dad didn't believe her. It kept it in the room and it just got worse. The house started smelling and the air was damp in my parents' room and they didn't know where it was coming from. So they decided to look for mold, but they couldn't find any. So they just went on cleaning and spraying stuff to make it smell nice. About 3 months later, the activities got worse. The whole house was affected by it, and the doors in the house would unlock themselves. Shelves would open by themselves, and the cups my mother drank from would always be broken when she woke up. This had all obviously scared my mom, and she decided to sell the wardrobe. It ended up in the hands of 2 old people, who a week later sold it on eBay. We don't know where it is now, for obvious reasons. Forgot to add, my dad, when he refurbished it, found a panel under the wardrobe where a little red box that was really dusty laid. Curiosity hit and they opened it. Inside was an old cufflink button, a love letter to a woman that was written in Swedish, and a strand of hair that my mother thought was off a horse because she kept horses, and when one had passed she would keep a strand of the horse's hair. Obviously they put it back in the box and tried to find out whose it was. They had no luck in finding who the box belonged to, so they ended up putting it back where they found it in the wardrobe. Though I have no pictures of the wardrobe or the items at the time, there was no reason to take a picture of them. And that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, comment down below which one you liked. Don't forget to subscribe. If you'd like to support the channel, there are links down below, including a link to buy my book if you like horror and fantasy. So go have a look. It is a physical edition you can order, and a digital copy you can order off of Amazon. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye bye. Boots. Listen all the time. Shh. Boots. God damn it. Go lie down. What do you want? A little tension. No wisdoms right now. Please. Boots. Boots.